welcome. Now, the new tax law takes effect from January 2026. Now, in this lesson, I want to walk you through how you can calculate your personal income tax, the one we call PAYE, pay as you earn. Doesn't matter the category of worker that you belong to, whether low income earner, the middle income earner, or a very high income earner, people that earn above 50 million as defined by the new tax law. So when you get this template, I'll be leaving it in the description. Just download it. Once you get it, all the formulas are there. Just come to this cell that I colored, cell G4, and input your monthly salary. Then it will calculate your annual and monthly tax liability. All things being equal, just go through the lesson and you will see that it covers all categories of person. For example, if I want to let's say someone that earns 300,000, I simply have to put it. This is 300,000. I have it, and then you see that the tax automatically, this is the annual tax liability and this is the monthly tax liability. Everything automatically updated. Now this is the concept. I will leave the template in the description. Download it, make use of it, and follow the lesson along. Thank you. All right, welcome. So let's go straight into the lesson now. If you take a look at my screen now, under the new tax law, we have about 6 categories of people. Now the first one are people that earns up to 800,000. They are going to pay nothing on their income. And then we have from 800,000, that's another category of people, to 3 million. Then we have from 3 million to 12 million, then from 12 million. So we have these categories of earners under the new tax law and how much they are going to pay as tax. Now this is the table that we are going to make use of. Now I want to do in such a way that we are going to calculate for the 5 categories of people that we have in this particular tax law, so that when you get this template, once you just input your income into it, automatically it will calculate what you are supposed to pay as tax, all things being equal. And then it will fit into all categories of workers. Doesn't matter how much you earn, whether small or great. Once you just get the template, just put in your tax, and then we're able to see, in all things being equal, how much you're going to pay. So let's look at, I want to start from the bottom. I want to look at Mrs. E. Now Mrs. E earns 12 million per month, monthly. She earns 12 million as income or salary per month. And then if we come to what we have done, let's go into how we're going to calculate our tax. Now we have the monthly personal income tax calculation, monthly salary for Mrs. E. I've colored it so that it will be obvious. So I'm going to input the 12.5 million that she earns monthly. That's the amount she earns monthly. So let's look at an annual income. So to get our annual income, say equals to this amount times 12. Then we arrive at 150 million naira as our annual income. Now this salary, this monthly salary, I want to take it as an assumption that it is the addition of these 3 elements: basic salary, housing allowance, and transport allowance. It differs from organization to organization, but I want to just assume in this for the purpose of this lesson. So let's just go. Now she earns 150 million naira annually. Now you will see that she has already fall into the 5th category of people that earns above 50 million annually. So let's calculate her tax and let's see what she's going to pay. Now rent is another discussion entirely, because if you have your personal accommodation, your personal house, you're not expected to take rent relief as provided for the new tax law. So if you own your house, you are not expected to take rent relief. And then the maximum that you can get as rent relief is 20%, and it is capped at 500,000. So let's just calculate that and say, so let's say Mrs. E that earns 150 million naira annually, I want to say that maybe 10% of our annual income is rent. So I would say it's just an assumption. I would say, okay, this amount times 10%, taking it as annual rent, and then we see that Mrs. E pays about 15 million naira as rent annually. So let's just go. Now this is what she pays annually, and these are the allowable deductibles. No, the relief that you get under the new tax law. Pension to be 8%, NHIS, assuming you subscribe to it, assuming your organization subscribe to it, 5%, NHF, that's the National Housing Fund, 2.5%, insurance premium. This is also an assumption. That's why I just try to color it out. I just assume to be, okay, let's say 3%, and then rent relief to be 20%. So let's calculate and see how all these allowable deductions will help us under the new tax law to actually reduce our tax liability. You can go through this note here. I provided explanation. So for pension, it's going to be 8% of your annual salary, basic plus housing plus transport. So I want to calculate it to be this 8% times our annual income. Now I want to lock this. I'll just press on my F4 to lock cell G5 where we have the annual income, because I want to drag down. So I will click on this, and then 8% of 150 million is 12 million. So Mrs. E pays about 12 million in pension. Under the new tax law, pension is 18% minimum. The employer will pay 10% minimum and the employee 8%. That's 18%. That is the minimum. So the organization can go higher, but the minimum is 18%. Now I will just drag this down to insurance. Now if you look at it, we have 12 million as pension, NHI 5% of the annual income. That's 7.5 million. Assuming all things being equal, assuming your organization subscribe to it, those are the ways in which you can reduce your tax liability under the personal income tax law. And then NHF 2.5% annually, so accumulating to 3.75 million naira. And then insurance, just an assumption that okay, you subscribe to insurance premium. Like I said that here, that if you subscribe to insurance, you have to provide evidence. Evidence is needed to back it up. And then let's calculate for rent. Now for rent, the rent relief allowed under the new tax law is 20% of your annual rent, and the maximum you can get is 500,000. So if the 20% of your annual rent exceeds 500,000, you are only allowed to claim 500,000 as relief. As you can see, 20% of annual rent capped at 500,000. So let's calculate. This is the annual rent of Mrs. E, 15 million. So let's calculate 20% of 15 million. So we say equals to 15 million times 20%, and then we have it to be this. And then see that the 20% of our annual rent is 3 million. Of course, you know that the law said that the maximum you can get is 500,000 naira. So how do we reduce this to 500,000? You can just write a simple formula to actually make sure that I don't want to actually enter it manually like this. This is not appropriate, so we can just write a simple formula to take care of that. So I'll go back to say, okay, this is the original one. So I'll come here to say, okay, I'll just use an if statement by saying that, okay, if this formula H6 times this 13 is greater than 500,000, now what I want to do, if the value is true, I want the exec to return 500,000. That is the maximum relief she can claim. Then comma, if the value is false, I want exec to return the original value, which is this. I will reference this again, 15 million, this cell, times 20%. Then I'll close my parentheses, then I'll press enter. And then you see that we have 500,000. So with this formula now, it has actually taken care of all possibilities. It will automatically calculate it, even when we come to other categories of staff. So the maximum she can claim is 500,000. So this is all allowable deduction, assuming that our organization subscribe to all of these reliefs. So let's just calculate and see. We say equals to sum. Let's calculate the total deductions. This to be this. So our deduction for annual deduction is 28 million plus. So now we can calculate our taxable income. So we say equals to this amount, annual income, minus the deductions. And then we have this one to be out of 150 million, she has actually reduced the taxable income to 121 million because of all the reliefs that she has claimed. Now we can now go ahead to calculate for a tax liability, taking into consideration that she has an income, a taxable income of 121 million annually. So these are the tax band. We want to say that up to 800,000 is 0%. The next 2.2 million, we have it to be 15%. The next 9 million to be 18%. The next 13 million to be 21%. The next 25 million to be 23%, and above 50 million to be 25%. So let's just calculate and see what she's going to pay. Now we know that the first 800,000 is 0%. We are not charging any tax on that. So we can just say it's going to be 0. And then we come here to check the balance. We say, okay, equals to, this is our taxable income. Now let's take away the first 800,000, which is not taxable. So say minus this 800,000, and then we have this. So these are the one we are going to work on to tax. Now, since we know that 120,950,000 is greater than 2.2 million, so we charge that at 15%. That's how it works. So we come here to say, okay, equals to this amount times 15%. And then this is the amount she's going to pay here. And then we come here to lex it and say equals to this amount minus 2.2 million. And then we have this. So we can go ahead to say, okay, this is our balance. And we know that 118 million is greater than 9 million. So we go ahead to charge that at 18%. So let's calculate that. Say equals to this times 18%. Now that's the amount she's going to pay here. And then we come here to less it and say equals to this amount minus the 9 million. That's how to calculate your tax liability. And then we have the balance to be 109 million. And we still know that this amount, 109 million, is greater than 30 million. So what do? We charge the next one as 21%. So we come here to say equals to 30 million times 21. And then we have it to be this way. And then we come here to less it and say equals to this amount minus 13 million. We come here and then we have it. So 96 million. Now the next 96 million, we know that it is greater than 25 million. So we charge that as 23%. We come here to calculate that by saying equals to 25%, 25 million rather, times 23%. We have that to be 5.something million. And then we come here to less it equals to this amount minus 25 million. And then lastly, we know that the balance 71 million, we know that it is greater than 50 million. Then we go ahead lastly to charge it at 25%. So we come here to say equals to 50 million times 21%. And then we calculate that. That will be 12.5 billion. And then we come here lastly to less it this amount minus 50 million, and then we have it. So this balance, she's not going to pay any tax on it. We have already calculated it. So this one is out of it. So this is our tax liability, our annual tax liability. So let's just find the sum by saying equals to sum, and then we add all of this, press on enter. So these are annual taxable income. Let's find the monthly. You can just come here and say equals to this divided by 12, and then we have that. So Mrs. E that earns 12 million naira monthly, all things being equal, her tax liability is 1.9 million. So I can come here, I can just come here and say, okay, equals to this amount. So Mrs. E, I'm going to copy this and paste this as value. Yeah, so to remove the formulas. So all things being equal, Mrs. E is going to pay, she's going to pay about 1.9 million monthly as tax. 1.9 million naira monthly as tax, assuming that our organization subscribe to all of these allowable deductions. That's the first scenario for high income earners. That's how you can just calculate your tax. Now we can go to the next category of people. Let's say Mrs. D that earns 2.6 million naira monthly. 2.6 million naira monthly. That's another category of people. Now let's come here and just put everything should update by itself. So our lesson is going to be faster now, except for the tax deductions. So we'll come to the next person that earns 2.6 million naira monthly. So Mrs. D earns 2.6 million naira monthly. She belongs to these categories of people that earn between 25 million naira to 50 million, and that is where Mrs. D belongs to. So let's calculate our own tax liability, annual tax liability, and see it. So we can come here to say, okay, she earns 2.6 million. We can just put 2.6 million naira here. And all of these automatically are updated. You can see these are annual income, these are annual rent. I just assume to be 10% of our income. And then all this also are be calculated. And you see with the formula we used the other time, annual rent 3.1 million naira. And then she can only claim relief of 500,000. And that's just it. So these are total deductions. The summation of all these are total deduction, and these are taxable income. Now with this, we can calculate our tax liability. So we only have to calculate from where we have the negative signs. So we can come here. This is correct. This is correct. This is correct. So we've charged the first to be this. So the next one is that we know that 12 million, this 12 million is lesser than 13 million. It's lesser than 30 million. So we are going to charge the 21%. These are balance. And then this is the next taxed bracket. So 30 million. And we know that 12 million is less than 30 million. So we are going to charge 21% on 12 million on this balance and not on this balance. So let's just compute for that. So we come here to say equals to this amount times this amount, 21%, and then we have it. So if we less it, we know that we cannot less this again because we are going to get negative value. So this is for Mrs. D, someone that earns 2.6 million naira monthly and about 31 million naira annually. Assuming all things being equal, our organization subscribe to all of this relief. No, she's going to have a tax liability this is the amount of tax that she's going to pay every month. So when you get this template, you only have to input your monthly salary here, and every other thing should calculate automatically. You only have to come here and do some adjustment. So, but if your organization does not subscribe to all of this, you can just put 0000 and it will still automatically calculate. So, Mrs. D, her tax liability monthly will be this amount. So I will just reference that, go here, I'm going to see it, and then we have that. So I'll just copy and paste as values because I'm going to change. Yeah, so we have that. And then let's go to the next category of people, which are people that earns between this bracket of money, that is from 12 to 25 million naira annually. So let's see their tax liability. And then in this category we have Mr. C. Mr. C here earns 1.5 million naira monthly. So let's calculate his tax liability. So we come here and just put 1.6 million, 1.5, and then we have it. So every other thing automatically as calculated, and you can see from the formula we put the other time, you see that rent automatically update. So out of the rent of 1.8 million, Mr. C can only claim 360,000 as rent relief. So the total relief is this amount, 3.6 million naira, and then this is a taxable income. So from there we can go ahead to calculate our taxable income, and then you can see that automatically the taxable income has automatically computed because we are not having any negative value from here. So you can see I can go ahead to recalculate just to be sure of what is happening. So I only have to calculate for the last one. You can see that 9 million we've calculated for 2, and then this one we can see that this the balance 2.3 million is less than 9 million. So I'll just come here and say equals to this amount multiply by 18%, and then I'll calculate, and then we have this. So every other one is automatically has been computed. I can just redo it again. Here 13 million we calculated for this. This is the balance greater than 9 million. So this is it. So for this person, Mr. C, the tax liability, annual monthly tax liability will be this amount. So with the impression, with the assumption that the organization subscribe to all of these allowable deduction. So this is the tax liability. I'm going to copy once again, and then I'll paste as values. You want to see all the 5 categories of people as affected. So when you get this template, just input your monthly salary, automatically everything will update except for rent and insurance. All others are statutories according to the new tax law. So let's go to the next category, which is Mr. B. Mr. B falls in the category of people that earns between 3.3 million to 12 million. So let's see his tax liability. We can come here and say, oh, we know that Mr. B earns 710,000 naira monthly. 710,000 naira monthly. So we can come here and put 710,000 naira, and that's it. So his annual income is 8.5 million. This is his rent, and these are the allowable deductions, and then this is the total, and then this is the taxable income. And then from here we can come here, delete this showing negative, delete this, we can delete this and compute. So let me compute that you'll be sure we know this is correct, and then we can charge. We know that 5 million is greater than 2.2 million, so we charge that at 15%. We come here to say equals to this times this, and then we have that to be this, and then we less that, say equals to this minus 2.2 million, and then we have that. So we can see that 3.7 million is actually lesser than 9 million. So we compute the next one based on this amount multiplied by 18%. That's how we compute the next one. So we come here to say equals to this amount times 18%, and then we press on enter, and then this is the tax liability, and then we cannot go further again. So we are done with that. And then this is the monthly tax for Mr. B, who earns about 710,000 naira monthly. His tax liability is just 84,000. Taking into consideration of all these allowable deductions. So I will come here and say equals to this amount, then Ctrl C, and then I'll paste that as values, and then we have that. Then the last category of people, which is I named to be Mr. A. Now Mr. A falls under the category of people that earns between 800,000 and 3 million naira monthly. So let's calculate his tax liability. So just come here and put the monthly salary here. Mr. A earns 211,000. So come here, put 211,000. This is 211,000, and then this is the annual income, 2.5 million. This is the annual rent, assuming that it is 10% of the annual income. So when you get this template, you need to work on the rent, you need to work on the insurance, and make sure that you input the correct value or the correct percentage. So once you do that, every other thing will automatically calculate by itself, and then you are able to calculate your tax liability. So every other thing is calculated. This is the allowable deduction, the total, and this is the taxable income. And then from here we can delete this. Let me calculate from the beginning so that you see it, and then you see it. And then we know that the first one is going to be this amount minus 800,000, and then we have it to be 1.2 million. Now 1.2 million. Now 1.2 million is lesser than 2.2 million. So we are going to calculate its tax liability. We are going to calculate this amount, 1.2 million, using 15%. That's the amount we are going to calculate. So we come here to say equals to this amount times 15%, and then we press on enter. And then we see that this is the tax liability. The annual tax liability is 181,941, and then the monthly tax liability is just 15,161 naira 0.75 kobo. So we can just come here and say equals to this amount. Then I want to copy this and paste this as values, and then we have that. So based on the new tax law taking effect January 2026, you just get this template, just input your monthly salary, it will calculate and show you your tax liability. Thank you so much. If you have learned anything, if you enjoyed this lesson, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you. I will leave the template in this description. Just download and make use of it. Thank you.